Forget New Year, New You. This season is about slowing down, locking the doors, and cozying up at home with the one you really want to do nothing with. Your dog. After the holiday chaos, those quiet nights with a blanket, a podcast, and your pup feel like the reset you actually need. Ollie helps make those moments easier with fresh protein-packed meals made from real human-grade ingredients, so your dog can enjoy some quality comfort food too. Choose from 5 recipes and get a personalized plan for your dog's needs. Meals arrive perfectly proportioned with a scoop and storage container, so serving is fast and mess-free. And with Ollie's in-app on-demand health screenings, supporting your dog is easy, ensuring more cuddles for many years to come. Visit ollie.com/truecrime and use code TRUECRIME for 60% off your first box.
This podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are the things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Because Progressive offers discounts for paying in full, owning a home, and more. Plus, you can count on their great customer service to help you when you need it, so your dollar goes a long way. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save on car insurance. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states or situations.
Granby Police Patrolman Gary Poehler heard the sounds of a woman crying coming from the basement. He had been the first officer to arrive at the scene at the cream-colored house on Barton Street, where Cara Rintala lived with her wife, Annamarie Cochrane Rintala, and their young daughter. He was under the impression that he was responding to a domestic call after a neighbor had called 911. No one said anything about a murder. It was March 29th, 2010, in Granby, Massachusetts, a picturesque small town of about 6,000 people, an hour north of Hartford, Connecticut. It was a rainy, chilly Monday evening in New England, about 7:15 p.m. The door was open, so Officer Poehler let himself in. He walked through the kitchen of the house and down the narrow, steep stairs that led into the basement. This stairway was cluttered with a child's rocker, a vacuum, shoes, and other items from daily life. "Police," he uttered to announce his presence. Then he saw a scene far more serious than his usual daily calls in Granby. Cara Rintala sat on the floor, crying, cradling her wife, Annamarie, across her lap. Annamarie was lifeless, rigid and unmoving, stiff as a board, paramedics later said. "I can't believe she's dead," Cara said. She kept repeating herself. "I can't believe she's dead." What surely caught the officer's attention right away was the sight of white paint.
There was a large amount of what appeared to be wet paint all over the area, as well as all over Annamarie and Cara. Okay.
And when you say all over Annamarie, what portions of her body do you remember seeing that paint on?
So she was holding her essentially in the supine position, face up. She had paint essentially all over her stomach, in some areas of her lap. I remember paint, I believe, on one side of her face, and blood.
Now, at this point, having been in the basement, can you tell us what observations you made in regards to the paint?
Yes. It was difficult. The paint was white. It had a pink hue to it. Had a pink hue to it, and there was also a lot of blood mixed.
Okay. And in terms of wetness or dryness of the paint, did you make any observations in that regard?
It was wet.
In terms of the paint itself, did you make any observations about the top of the paint?
Yes. Like I said, the paint was wet. There was no coagulation. There was no film. And it was, as I stated, easily transferred when I walked through it.
Underneath the paint, Annamarie's body was covered in scrapes and bruises, and there was a goose egg bump on her head. Blood was pooling by her body, and Officer Poehler noticed dried blood on her nostrils and on her hands. Evidence, though, was hard for investigators to collect. Whoever the killer was had perhaps intentionally tried to contaminate the scene by spilling paint all over. And it worked. The paint contaminated any DNA, fingerprints, and blood. What evidence was left to convict anyone? This is Jillian in partnership with Law and Crime. You are listening to Court Junkie, episode 260. Cara Rintala still held her lifeless wife as she spoke to Officer Poehler.
While she was still in this position that you talked about under Annamarie's body, do you remember her making any additional statements?
I do. Primarily around the time that I had checked her pulse and made the determination that she was beyond life-saving measures, I told her I was going to have to take her away from this area. She continuously said, I came home, the door was open, I don't know what happened. She had indicated that they had been arguing since last night and this morning.
The officers helped Cara get out from underneath Annamarie's body, except for one of her shoes that was stuck. Officer Poehler could clearly see the blood and paint on Cara's jeans and her sweater. He and Cara went upstairs, with Cara crossing her arms so she wouldn't get paint all over. Her socks were soaked and left bloody paint marks on the stairs. They went into the kitchen and sat down at the table.
After we had sat down, obviously it was a very difficult moment for Cara. Gave her a minute and I asked her if she could tell me what happened. Cara explained that she had come home from being out shopping with Brianna. She noticed that the kitchen door was open. She came in the house. The only light in the house that was on was in the basement. She said she went to her and Annamarie's bedroom, only to realize that Annamarie was not in the bedroom. She said she then returned back to the kitchen area when Brianna had said to her, Mommy's in the basement.
Did she indicate to you when she initially entered that side door, what you call the kitchen door, to the home? You indicated she said that the only light on in the house was in the basement?
That's correct.
Did she say anything in regards to the basement door itself when she first entered the home?
No, she didn't. She just said the door was open.
Okay.
I entered the home and went to the bedroom.
Okay, and when you say the door is open, are you talking about the side door or the basement door?
I believe the basement door.
She said she saw a light on in the basement, correct?
She told me the only light in the house that was on was in the basement.
Okay. And when she went to the bedroom and Ann was not there, she got back to the kitchen area?
That's correct.
And that's when Brianna made this statement to her, Mommy's in the basement?
That's what she told me.
And did she indicate that, did she do anything after Brianna made that statement to her?
She said at that point she grabbed Brianna and the dog and brought them to the next door neighbor's home.
Cara told him she then came back home and went downstairs.
Did she indicate what she observed when she went into the basement?
She told me when she got to the basement, Annamarie was face down. I believe that's the prone position. And she pulled her up over her lap, and that's when we arrived.
While you were seated at this kitchen table with her, did you have any additional conversation or receive any information from her about what had been happening earlier in the day?
Yes. She had indicated that they had been arguing all morning and since last night or the night prior via text message and telephone. At some point, it sounds like what she said to me was that Annamarie hung up on her and then wouldn't respond to any more text messages. It was essentially over an argument that they had about a gentleman named Mike that was over the house. Cara tried to indicate that there was basically nothing going on, and that Mike was just over there gossiping like a couple of schoolgirls. That's what she explained to me.
Did she indicate where Ann was at this time? In other words, how they were having this phone conversation, where Ann was located?
She said she was working the overnight shift, the 11 to 7 or midnight to 8 shift.
At the time that you had this conversation with the defendant, she gave you this information, how would you describe her demeanor?
I feel like she was She was pretty cool, calm, and collective at that point. Far less upset than she was downstairs, but still upset, obviously.
He asked Cara more about the last time she had spoken to her wife. It was around their daughter Brianna's nap time, around 3 p.m., Cara said. She said she told Annamarie she wanted to take Brianna shopping. Annamarie sounded relieved. Good, go shopping. They were both paramedics, and Annamarie struggled to sleep during the day before working the overnight shift. Cara said she seemed glad for a quiet house so she could sleep. By now, as Cara was sharing this, other first responders were arriving at the house. These paramedics knew both women and were shocked by Annamarie's death. At least one of them was aware that things had been rocky between the two. Cara had once complained to him that Annamarie opened up a credit card in Cara's name and charged up $25,000 on it. Cara had said she was going to let the divorce attorneys handle it. Officer Poehler had to take his attention off of Cara, at least for a few minutes. He and one of the paramedics went downstairs to check on Annamarie's body. Then he went outside, speaking briefly with his sergeant. Before he left Cara, he had asked another paramedic to make sure she stayed in the kitchen. The paramedic didn't follow the instructions. When Officer Poehler returned inside, the kitchen was empty. Cara was gone. He found the paramedic and Cara coming out of the bathroom.
I asked Gene, what are you guys doing? He said she wanted to wash her hands. I said, did she wash her hands? He said, yes, she washed her hands and face.
Okay.
At that time, Cara reached and turned the bedroom light on and said, I just want to get Annamarie's phone. At that point, I looked off to the right. I seen the cell phone flashing. There's like a flashing green light on the cell phone. And I had instructed her that I don't want her to touch anything else. I just want her to go back to the kitchen.
Okay. And was she compliant with that?
She absolutely was. She said, I understand. At that point, she said, I understand. I'm the number one suspect.
At what point in time did she say, I understand, I'm the number one suspect?
When I asked her to go back to the kitchen and not touch anything.
And it was in response to that statement that she made that comment?
That's correct.
Did you respond to that in any way?
I told her it was just important that we find out what happened.
Cara returned to the kitchen. She had said the words out loud. She was the number one suspect, even though it was too early for Officer Poehler and the others to know how Annamarie had died. But if you think this is going to be a straightforward case, think again. Officer Poehler had responded to that call on March 29th, 2010. You heard him here testifying at trial 13 years later in 2023. Under cross-examination, Officer Poehler said he had been a patrolman for 8 years at the time of that 2010 call.
Now, those 8 years, is it fair to say you've never responded to a homicide?
That's correct.
So this would have been the very first homicide that you've ever responded to in your 8 years of experience up until the day that you walked in. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And is it also fair to say, sir, that when you got to the scene, let me ask you, did you do anything to protect the integrity of the crime scene before you entered the house?
I don't understand your question.
Sure. In other words, before you walked in the house, did you put any gloves on? Did you put any booties on? Did you do anything like that?
I didn't know I was responding to a crime scene.
Well, you knew it was a domestic, right?
That's correct.
That's a crime, right?
Not a crime scene until it becomes one.
Okay. So you get to the front door and it's open, right?
That's correct.
And you hear the screaming from downstairs, right?
That's correct.
And at that point, you stop and put booties on, put gloves on, start to protect the integrity of the crime scene?
No.
And is that because you've never responded to a homicide before this incident on the 29th of March?
No, that's because I've never done that at a domestic home.
Okay. Once you went downstairs and you realized that the victim was dead, did you do anything to search the house?
No, I did not.
Okay. Did you do anything to speak to Cara Rintala about the door being opened and anything about the door being opened?
You mean while I was in the basement?
Yes.
No.
Okay. And once you understood that you couldn't render any aid to the victim in this case, Did you go and search the rest of that house?
I did not.
Did you go to look to see if anyone was there?
I did not.
Did you go to look to see if anyone might have left through the front door?
I did not.
Did you look at any of the bedrooms?
I did not.
Did you look at any part of the house?
I stayed with Cara.
The mystery of how Annamarie Cochrane Rintala died was answered quickly. Joanne Richmond, a forensic pathologist who had a long career in her field, performed her autopsy on April 1st, 2010. She was able to make her determination as to the cause of death.
Based upon your external and internal examination of Annamarie Cochrane Rintala's body, did you form an opinion as to her cause of death?
Yes.
What was that opinion?
Manual strangulation.
At trial, she was asked to describe what length of time the compression of the neck would induce unconsciousness.
Well, it's been reported that it can cause unconsciousness in about as soon as 10 seconds.
10 seconds?
10 seconds.
And what duration, what length of time of compression of the neck would be required to induce death?
Again, it's reported to be about 4 minutes.
Jurors saw the autopsy photos of the scrapes on Annamarie's forehead and underneath her chin. There were small scratches on her neck and bruises on her nose. Dr. Richmond couldn't know exactly what caused those marks. But there were also bruises all over her arms and back, on the fronts and backs of both legs. Dr. Richmond counted 23 clusters of bruises in all. A bruise had even appeared on the top of Annamarie's foot. Dr. Richmond cut Annamarie's hair and could see a big bump, a goose egg, on the left side of her head. That blunt force trauma was significant and played a role in her death, she said.
And did you attribute the blunt force injuries to her head to be contributing factors in this case?
Yes, I did.
Why is that?
Well, they were significant injuries. She's got 2 large contusions on her head, plus 3 large lacerations that were all the way down to the skull. And there was extensive hemorrhage into the tissues underlying the scalp. So it would have been a significant injury. It may have caused her to be dazed, confused, or even unconscious.
Now, given the number of injuries to Ann's body, as well as where they were located on her body, do you have an opinion as to whether or not some of them could be consistent with falling down a flight of stairs?
Yes, some of them could be, sure.
Now, with respect to the injuries, both to her head and to her body, is there any way that you, as a forensic pathologist, can say the order in which these injuries were sustained?
No, I can't.
Are you able to say the length of time over which they were inflicted?
No.
Are you able to say whether they were inflicted from a prolonged assault as opposed to a quick assault?
I don't know of any way I could tell that.
Another key finding, Dr. Richmond found no drugs or alcohol in Annamarie's system. Dr. Richmond was limited in what conclusions she could make from the autopsy results. Like she couldn't say precisely when Annamarie died, so she gave a range.
So based upon the information that you received, what is your opinion as to how long before she was found dead that she had died?
Well, based on well-developed rigor mortis in all the extremities, and the coolness of the body and the lividity, I would put her time of death at 6 to 8 hours prior to being found.
In her obituary, Annamarie sounded courageous and adventurous. In addition to working as a paramedic where she was happy helping others in need and saving lives, she also learned how to scuba dive. She liked photography, golf, traveling, and rooting for Notre Dame football. The big question, why would someone kill her? The testimony you're hearing throughout this episode is from Cara Rintala's trial that started in September 2023. It wasn't her first trial. It was actually her fourth. Cara's first trial in 2013 and second trial in 2014 both ended in mistrials because the juries were deadlocked and couldn't reach a unanimous verdict. Again, much of the physical evidence had been destroyed at the crime scene by the paint, further complicating the prosecution's case. A third trial led to a guilty verdict in 2016, and Cara was sentenced to life in prison without parole. But the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court overturned that conviction because an expert witness's testimony about a new paint job in the couple's home was improper, according to the state's highest court. Now the fourth trial was underway in September 2023, and Annamarie and Cara's unhappy marriage was going to be scrutinized in the courtroom again. The couple had a long history of 911 calls, court proceedings, and divorce filings that prosecutors played and brought up as evidence against Cara. The first time the police had to intervene in their relationship was shortly after Cara and Annamarie had adopted their daughter Brianna in 2008. It was a year after they had gotten married, according to Deputy District Attorney Jennifer Sue in her opening statement.
On this date, there was yet another argument within their home, and the evidence will show that Ann scooped up Brianna, got into her car, and fled to the Granby police station. The defendant was in her own car in short order behind her, but Ann got there first. And shortly after Cara arrived at the police station, she was put in handcuffs. She was placed under arrest for assault and battery on Annamarie. Also, Annamarie got a restraining order against the defendant. That restraining order kicked the defendant out of her home, which was only deeded in her name. It gave custody of Brianna to Ann, and it prohibited any contact from the defendant to Brianna.
The criminal charges against Cara were eventually dropped, but prosecutor Sue said Cara never forgot that ordeal. It was a turning point in their relationship. Cara had filed for divorce but didn't serve Annamarie with the papers, so the divorce stalled. She said by late spring of 2009, the two women had given up on their relationship. It was over. Before Cara could properly serve Annamarie, however, Annamarie filed her own paperwork and asked for the house, custody of Brianna, and for spousal and child support. Soon, police were back at the house, with Cara calling 911. According to prosecutor Sue, Cara had wild mood swings, was hysterical, and her relationship with Annamarie was spiraling out of control at the smallest triggers. Here's Cara speaking to a judge when the two later sought competing restraining orders against each other.
I reached all that I can take, and I'm afraid. I'm afraid to be in my house because of what Ann's going to say, because I'm constantly threatened verbally and bodily as far as in my personal space.
Annamarie told the judge, "I filed for divorce. She's very upset with me." The judge got angry at this hearing as the two women continued to interrupt each other.
All right. This is an issue that goes well beyond a simple restraining order. We can have criminal charges going back and forth against both of you, and the only one that's going to really affect in the long run is your daughter, because eventually, with what's going on here, DCF is going to be involved, and neither one of you will have to worry about custody because the DCF will come in, and the DCF will take the child and deal with the child and put the child in a home that's a little more stable. That's where we are.
Neither restraining order request was granted. In the 7 months before Annamarie's death, the two women separated. They co-parented Brianna. Annamarie moved out. But on Christmas Eve, they decided to get back together. they voluntarily dismissed the divorce proceedings.
But the evidence will show that despite that effort on Christmas Eve to try to stay together, to try to work it out, that those efforts were completely futile. All the issues that they had had for years were unresolved. They had not gone away. All those things they were facing before the end of their relationship, the division of debt, the child custody disputes, were all back on the table, weeks before Annamarie's murder.
Nancy Kaufman was technically Annamarie's aunt, but the two women weren't that far apart in age. Nancy was 12 years older. They grew up together in Massachusetts. Nancy was more like Annamarie's sister or second mom, since Nancy herself had 7 brothers and was glad for another girl to hang out with. What I did, she did, Nancy testified. Even as adults, they stayed very close, like sisters or best friends. They spoke daily on the phone for years, despite Nancy moving away to Florida, and they still saw each other at least once a year on trips back and forth. Cara, Annamarie, and Brianna stayed with Nancy for her 50th birthday in late February 2010, about a month before Annamarie's death. They went on a cruise, but Nancy immediately sensed that this was not a happy family vacation. She described the mood when the family arrived at her home in Florida around 10:30 p.m.
I sensed friction, but I'm figuring it was along whatever they had to do. And they came to the house. At the time, we only had 3-bedroom home. I had taken my younger son out of his room, and I had given that room to Bree, Cara, and Ann. And I just let them be. I figured they're tired. It was a long day, but it was just... Ian, she's like, I didn't talk to anybody. I had everyone go to bed, but I'm an old lady, so I just sensed something was not kosher. So I didn't say anything, and I let everyone go to bed until the following morning. And that's what I did, figuring it was just a tough night. Let them sleep. We'll get up. We'll have a nice day. And that's how my very first interaction that evening.
And going to the next days, in other words, in the days before they went into a cruise in your house, without getting into any content of conversations, how did you generally observe them being around or communicating with one another?
One would be in one room, and another one would be in another room. It wasn't as though they were together. Bree would be, Brianna, love her. There wasn't very much communication with two people that are supposedly going on a cruise and you're with your baby and having a good time. Yeah. It was tense.
After their cruise, Annamarie, Cara, and Brianna returned to see Nancy one last time before they headed back to Massachusetts. Annamarie and Cara were still fighting, so Nancy, trying to broker peace, volunteered to babysit and suggested the couple go relax at the beach.
I offered them to go to the beach for the day. And at that point, Cara was in the kitchen, came storming into the kitchen. I had asked Cara, would you like to go to the beach? I will watch Brianna while you guys get out for a couple hours. Her instantly looked at me and says, do you think this wants to go to the beach with that? She took her sneakers, put them on, and I had a very big door, and she stormed out the door, and my niece just broke down and started to cry. It was an insult to her weight because she had gained weight.
Sustained.
Move to strike.
Sorry.
Last answer is stricken.
Nancy testified that she witnessed one of Cara's outbursts.
Came out of a back bedroom, came storming into the kitchen, put her sneakers on, turned to me, said, I will never take Brianna away from you. I want a divorce, and continued out the door running.
Do you remember if Ann was in the room at that point in time?
Yes, she was.
Okay. And Cara made the comment, I want a divorce.
Yes, ma'am.
And I think you said that she also said the words, I'll never take Brianna away from
me. I'll never take Brianna away from you, Auntie.
Okay, so I'm looking for clarification of who she was making that comment to, if that was to Ann or if that was to you.
To me.
Okay.
She was speaking to me in those words.
Okay.
It wasn't directed to Ann.
After the family left, Cara called Nancy, which was unusual. Nancy didn't even recognize Cara's phone number. She had never called her before.
Do you remember the date that this occurred on, or how many days before Ann's passing it occurred, if you remember?
I do remember. It was a Wednesday before, because my niece passed on a Monday. And there's certain things you don't forget. And I remember that clearly.
Confused, Nancy answered. Cara was calling her as she worked a 24-hour shift at the fire station.
When she had called me, she had wanted to talk to me. She had says to me, the only one she's going to listen to you is you. And it was about a dog. You need to tell her I can't afford the dog. We can't afford a dog.
On March 29th, 2010, Annamarie texted Nancy about movies and called her twice around 10:30 a.m. and 11:30 a.m. The calls went straight to voicemail. Nancy didn't answer. That would be the last time Nancy ever heard from her. Under cross, Cara's attorney asked questions about Annamarie's financial troubles.
Did you know from your conversations with Annamarie Rintala that she was in some financial trouble?
Yes.
And did you know that she had taken out loans?
No.
Did you know that she had taken out a $20,000 loan in Cara's name?
No.
Did you know that she had 3 credit cards from Mark Olisak that she was charging on?
No.
Do you know Cara Daniele?
I do.
Was that a former girlfriend of your niece?
Years ago.
Okay. Did you know that Cara Rintala's credit card, that she was using a credit card from Cara Rintala that she had about $10,000 on?
No.
And the relationship that you had with your niece that was very close, she didn't tell you about the $10,000 credit card debt that she had with her old girlfriend, Cara Daniele, right?
I don't recall that.
You don't recall her ever saying that?
No, I don't recall it.
Massachusetts State Police Trooper David Swan testified about the communications between Cara and Annamarie leading up to the murder. It's important to remember that Officer Poehler responded to the scene at about 7:15 p.m. on March 29th. From 8 p.m. March 28th through 8 a.m. March 29th, there was a flurry of calls and text messages between Cara and Annamarie. At the heart of the argument was a man named Mike, one of Cara's friends who had come over with some beer. "I don't like feeling like this. You're my wife," Annamarie texted at 9:09 p.m. It sparked a long, drawn-out fight via text message. Cara wrote that he was just a good friend coming over to relax and that there wasn't anything going on between them. She texted Annamarie at 9:14 p.m. "Okay, you're being over the top and crazy for no reason. He showed up unannounced to visit. It's okay, he's my friend, period. Not doing anything wrong. Now being rude. Can you please relax?" It went back and forth. Annamarie responded, "You're being rude." At 8:08 a.m. on March 29th, Annamarie called her friend, Mark Olisak. Mark was also a paramedic and was partners with Cara. He was married. Mark texted Annamarie back, "I just woke up. Can't talk on the phone. I'm home. I got therapy at 10. I can call you then, but I know Cara's home, so call me tomorrow. I love you." At 11:46 a.m., Annamarie texted Mark, "Keep your phone on you today. I may call you later." Annamarie's phone then called Nancy at 12:21 p.m.
Sir, in terms of actions that were taken with Ann's phone, in terms of placing calls, sending texts, taking pictures, the user of that phone proactively doing something, is 12:21 p.m. the last user-initiated activity on Ann's phone that day?
Yes.
After that, Annamarie's phone shows missed calls and text messages that she didn't respond to and that weren't even read. Mark had messaged her that he was sad because his sister had cancer. No response. That last call to Nancy at 12:21 p.m. was key to the prosecution's case. It fit with the medical examiner's testimony that Annamarie had been dead for hours before Officer Poehler had found her dead at about 7:15 that evening. What also stood out, the prosecution said, was that Cara's phone was strangely quiet from 12:21 p.m. until just before 5 p.m. Trooper Swan testified about what happened when Cara's phone became active again. At 4:48 p.m., Cara texted Annamarie and wrote, "You still asleep?" She then left Annamarie 5 voicemails in the late afternoon and early evening. On these voicemails, she rambled. She also sounded unnaturally cheerful, especially after she had been texting back and forth angrily with Annamarie earlier in the day. The prosecution asked, was Cara trying to give herself an alibi? It's hard to make out what Cara said on the voicemails from the trial audio, so the following is from the transcript. In a voicemail to Annamarie left at 5:52 p.m., less than an hour and a half before Officer Poehler found Annamarie's body, Cara said, "Hey, it's me. I mean, I know you're mad, and like Mike is, I work with him, honey. He's one of my closest friends, but there's no reason to still be mad. I mean, my gosh." Cara also said that their 2-year-old daughter, Brianna, quote, "isn't hungry, so we're on our way back. We thought we were going to go shopping because she has school tomorrow, so we were going to go pick up some bread. We changed our mind, went around the Rotary. It's like Big Ben. And so we wound up at the mall, back at the mall, because we had already gone to the mall. Oh my gosh. Anyways, so we end up back at the mall. This time we got some socks and some new shirts. Anyways, Brianna says hi, she loves you, and I love you, and we're still driving. Love you, bye." 3 minutes later, Cara left another voicemail at 5:55 p.m. "Listen, it's me again. You're starting to make us worried. Like, what's up?" "Where are we going?" Brianna could be heard asking in the background. "Remember, we forgot to get stuff for your lunch tomorrow at school," Cara said. "Yes, we're going home. Anyways, we were going to Big Y, and then I'm like, well, you know what? I'm going to make the extra trip to Holyoke because Stop and Shop and Genuine Pretzels. It's the best thing going on in the world. But anyways, she needs stuff for her lunch tomorrow, and the apples aren't ready. I know they're not ready because they're still green, so there's no way she's going to eat them. I can't send crackers and cheese and crackers, so anyways, maybe got to pick up some fruit like bananas or something. Anyway, love you, bye. Call us, okay? Bye-bye." At 6:42 p.m., 33 minutes before Annamarie's body was found, Cara left another voicemail. She said how worried she was that she hadn't heard from Annamarie, and then said she was going to Burger King. Thought we would come out of the mall, and of course she's hungry, and I didn't hear from you, so I thought we'd hit McDonald's. She didn't want McDonald's. No, wants mac and cheese. The only thing that has mac and cheese is Burger King. On our way to Burger King. Call, please, please, please. Bye. At 6:58 p.m., Cara left another voicemail.
"Hi, honey. Listen, what is going on? I'm not like you. I don't get all worried over little things if I don't call you all the time. But this is not like you, okay? So I'm starting to get, I don't know whether to be aggravated because you were, just being stubborn or what. Anyway, just call me. Bye-bye."
Cara kept the receipts that showed her grocery and fast food purchases, proof that she did what she said she did. But according to the prosecution's theory, everything about this, the text messages, the errands, was all fake. They said Cara knew that Annamarie wasn't going to call her back and didn't care she was eating at Burger King or McDonald's and driving around the mall. By then, Annamarie was already dead in the basement. Retired State Trooper Christopher Ray testified about what he discovered after reviewing surveillance footage along the route that Cara took on her errands.
"I went to the southeast corner, the furthest trash receptacle in that parking lot, and I looked into the trash can and I observed 3 different rags laid out on top of regular McDonald's white trash. I then removed the cover. There's a plastic cover on it. I removed it, and I could see better that there was a red rag, a gray rag, and then a pink diaper And based on that, I secured that trash.
These rags were consistent with rags found in Cara's and Annamarie's home. Forensics found a trace amount of blood on one of the rags. The prosecution believed Cara had killed Annamarie just after 12:21 p.m. in what was, quote, the argument to end all arguments. Prosecutor Sue told the jury that Cara and Annamarie had been arguing at the top of the basement stairs.
The evidence will show that in that area at the top of a set of very steep basement stairs, the argument's still going on. That argument found its way down those stairs and ended at the base of those stairs on a cold cement floor with Ann bloodied, with her being hurt, with her being bruised. And this argument was the argument to end all arguments between them.
Whether by accident or intent, Annamarie ended up bruised and bloodied at the bottom of the basement stairs. The coroner had verified that the multiple bruises on her body were consistent with a fall down the stairs. But then Prosecutor Sue said, Cara took it further.
At this point with Ann and her condition, of the things that have been said, of the things that they knew that had happened in their past, the evidence will show that things had gone too far, gone further than ever gone before. In the defendant's mind, there was no turning back. She put her hands around Annamarie's neck and she strangled her until she was dead.
According to Prosecutor Sue, after Cara killed Annamarie, she then engaged in a lengthy scheme to conceal her crime, misdirect the investigation, and to keep the police from discovering what she had done.
It started with her attempt to alter the crime scene. The evidence will show that the defendant engaged in an attempt to clean up the basement area where Annamarie had been killed. When the police ultimately arrived later that night and forensic scientists from the lab and crime scene technicians arrived, they saw very clearly that there was a significant amount of blood around Annamarie's body. You'll see and hear evidence that she had significant gashes to her head, the sides and the back of her head, down to the skull, that caused a significant amount of blood at the scene, much of which was still visible when the responders got there. However, they're also trained to look for blood that's not there anymore, that you can't see with the naked eye, and they have tools to be able to do that. You'll hear evidence that these crime scene technicians applied a substance called leucocrystal violet, also known as LCV. It's a chemical applied that reacts when it touches or hits blood that can no longer be seen, but which is still there. And you'll hear that when they applied this LCV throughout the basement, it lit right up. The whole basement, bright blue and purple all around Annamarie's body, in parts where blood was visible, but also in parts where blood was no longer visible. You'll have an opportunity to see and hear testimony from a member of the crime scene technician services, wipes and swipes and smears and movement within that blood that's no longer visible to the naked eye. In areas where there's blood that's later determined through DNA analysis to belong to Annamarie. So you will hear that there was an attempt to clean up the basement.
Prosecutor Sue also told the jury that Cara tried to stage a break-in to make it look like someone had broken in and killed Annamarie.
You'll have an opportunity to see the door jamb in the door on that exterior door that I talked about. That's just a couple of feet from the top of that basement stairs. And you'll hear and see evidence of hack marks that are in the door jamb of that door, on the side frame of the door. And what I mean by that is crescent-shaped hack marks where the wood is cut out and there are wood chips on the threshold of the door immediately below it. You'll have the opportunity to see a shovel that was used to create those marks, a shovel that belonged to the Rintala residence that had white paint residue that's consistent with the paint residue from the door jamb. And you'll see those marks. But what you won't see, ladies and gentlemen, is damage to the door itself. In other words, you won't see any hack marks or movement or chips off of the door on the actual plane of the door itself. You'll see there's a large pane of glass on that door next to the doorknob, which is unaltered. not damaged in any way, and the doorknob was still intact, and it could still lock. It still worked. The evidence will show you, based on the angle of those marks that I'm talking about and the evidence of the door, that those hack marks were done with the door open. That's why they appeared that way. That's why the door was not actually damaged. An attempt to stage the scene to make look like a break-in.
She said after Cara did all this, she then left, taking Brianna with her.
And the evidence will show that this was an attempt to create an alibi, to be somewhere else that day on the day that Ann was killed.
According to prosecutors, as Cara was driving around, she was also disposing of evidence.
That McDonald's that I talked to you about earlier, where there's a surveillance video, she tells the state police about going to McDonald's. She says that she went into the McDonald's, made a different choice about not buying food there, and decided to go somewhere else. So didn't go into the store and didn't go through the drive-thru at McDonald's. But what she fails to tell the state police, that they find out whenever they pull the video, is that when she goes into that parking lot at McDonald's, she goes by multiple trash cans in the parking lot, all the way to the back exterior trash can at the furthest most corner of the McDonald's parking lot. Pouring down rain, and in the pouring down rain, she exits her truck, walks over to that trash can, and goes back into her car and leaves. Something she didn't tell the state police about. When they go to that trash can, they find 3 rags, consistent with types of rags that are used for cleaning. Cut out pieces of fabric, and particularly a pink cloth diaper, an old pink cloth diaper that would be used for a baby. The same type of pink cloth diaper that's located under the sink at 18 Barton Street in the kitchen, among a bunch of other rags. You'll also see surveillance video, as I said, from these places, the fact that she's driving an open bed truck. In the back of that truck, you will see in surveillance video larger items that are moving around within the back of that truck, including up until less than a half an hour before she arrives home on the surveillance video. But by the time she drives home, those items are no longer there. And she didn't tell the state police about it.
She said when Cara and Brianna went back home, Cara took Brianna and their dog to the neighbor's house and told them to call 911. She then went back to the house.
By 7 p.m. that night, she's now done what she wants to do. The evidence will show she's altered the scene, she's created her alibi, she's disposed of items, and she has to go home. She has a baby. It's time to go home and to initiate a police response to the house. And she doesn't do that by going into the house, using her cell phone, calling 911. What she does instead is she scoops up her daughter, Brianna, the dog, the family dog that lives at this house, and she runs over to the neighbor's house, the Dupuy residence at 20 Barton Street, the next door neighbor. She gives them some cryptic message to them saying, Ann's in the basement, call 911, which he does, and then she goes back to the house. The evidence will show that in a last-ditch effort in those moments to contaminate that crime scene, to eliminate whatever forensic evidence continues to be around Annamarie's body, she dumped a 5-gallon bucket of paint all over Ann's body, all around Ann's body. She then got herself under Ann's body, rolled Ann's body up on top of her, got herself in all the blood and paint, and waited. Shortly after that 911 call was made by the neighbors, the police and the paramedics arrived at the scene. They find the defendant underneath Ann's body. They see her crying. She's yelling, Ann is dead. She says she can't get out from Ann's body, even though she got under her body on her own. And they assist her in doing that. And they get her out, and they move her upstairs. And the evidence will show that one of the first people she talks to that night is Officer Gary Poehler of the Granby Police Department within that home. And he asks her several questions. What's going on? What happened today? And in that conversation, the evidence will show the defendant made a critical mistake. He asks her, what time did you leave the house? When's the last time you saw Ann alive? And she says, 3 p.m.
3 p.m.
And why was that a critical mistake, according to prosecutors? Because when first responders went to touch Annamarie's body, it was already stiff as a board. Here's the former chief medical examiner for the state of New Hampshire, Thomas Andrew, who the prosecution called to testify about this.
How would you describe or characterize the degree or development of the rigor mortis that was described in Annamarie's body?
Well, I don't think there could be any reasonable dispute that this is well-developed rigor. It involved the shoulder and the hip girdle. So this is well-developed throughout the body.
Is the degree of stiffness and the degree of rigor mortis that was described in Annamarie's body typically seen in less than 6 hours after death?
Typically?
Yes.
No, not typically. No, it's a bell-shaped curve, like all things are in science, but not typically. Certainly no.
According to prosecutors, an intruder would have had to have killed Annamarie, then stuck around for hours before splashing paint on her body. It made more sense, they said, that Cara killed Annamarie, left her to create her alibi, then returned home, and in a last-ditch effort, she covered the body in paint, which was still wet when officers responded to the scene. Cara's defense attorney, Rosemary Scapiccio, argued that authorities had blinders on and had investigated Annamarie's death as a case of domestic violence, since the dispatcher had mistakenly called it in as a domestic incident. She argued that police completely overlooked someone else as a suspect, Mark Oleksak.
They want you to believe that Cara Rintala is the only one in the whole world who had access to that house, and the only one in the whole world who could have done this. What they didn't tell you about is a guy by the name of Mark Oleksak.
She said Mark gave police a false alibi for his whereabouts on the day of the murder, and that they didn't follow up with him until a year later. Scapiccio alleged this was because they were already biased to the domestic dispute angle.
So they go and talk to him 18 months later. And they find out that he is sleeping in Annamarie Rintala's sleeping bag. And he tells them a story that we're really, really good friends. And being really, really good friends, these are the things that we do. We go out to dinner. We go for drinks. We hug. We kiss on the corner of the mouth. I don't know why that's important, but he thought it was. And then at least on one occasion, Mark Oleksak sent a text to Annamarie Rintala that he loved her. And he says he loved her in a friend way. That's what he did.
She said investigators learned that he had lied and that he had actually set Annamarie up with 3 credit cards that he paid for and that his wife wasn't aware of.
So they go and they look for these credit cards. They try to figure out what it was. What is it that you're allowing her to charge? What is it that you're allowing her to use? What is it that you, Mark Oleksak, are taking on the responsibility of paying? By the time Annamarie Rintala is killed, there's a $7,000 outstanding debt on the credit card. Again, that Mark Oleksak doesn't tell his wife.
She said when Annamarie decided to give her marriage to Cara another try, Mark helped her pack up her apartment.
And what he finds when he's helping her move out of that apartment is a note and a picture. And the note is from another woman, Cara Daniele. Cara Daniele and Annamarie Rintala had an on-again, off-again relationship about 10, maybe even 13 years. And he finds this note, and he finds this photograph, and he realizes at the same time that he's having these conversations and these kisses on the side of the mouth and giving her these credit cards, she's in Vegas with Cara Daniele.
She said Mark saved the note and picture, but never spoke of it to Annamarie. She told the jury that he texted Annamarie on the day of her death around 1:53 p.m.
Does he tell the police, hey, I tried to contact her that night. She never picked up. That's so odd because she always picks up. No, he doesn't. You know what he does instead, ladies and gentlemen? He deletes the text. He deletes the text at 1:53.
In addition to Mark Oleksek, Scapiccio said they treated Annamarie's ex-girlfriend, Carla Daniele, the same way. She said Carla also lied to police and said she went for a run during the time of the murder. But when looking at her bank records, they found that she went to the ATM in the direction closer to Cara's and Annamarie's house. They also found that she had gone to a tanning appointment as well.
And nobody questions whether or not when you're in the middle of a run, you would normally stop for a tanning appointment. Nobody questions that. And I expect you're going to see, as part of the crime scene, that there is tanning lotion on that basement floor. But does anyone ask about it? No. Does anyone ask her why she didn't tell the police about the stop to go tanning in the middle of her run? Anyone ask her about whether or not why she stopped at the ATM in the middle of her run in the opposite direction of the route she told the police she was going? No.
She pointed out that Cara, on the other hand, cooperated with police when they came to the scene and made a 2.5-hour statement at the crime scene. Moreover, she said Cara had no visible injuries that night.
You'll hear that there was a struggle in the basement. You'll hear that somebody strangled Annamarie Rintala. You'll hear that somebody put their hands on her neck for 3 to 4 minutes. And that there's disarray in that cell. And not a scratch, not a cut, not a scratch, not a bruise on Cara Rintala.
She said Cara drove Brianna around to get her to fall asleep and then headed to the mall to pass time so that Annamarie could sleep in an empty house to be rested for her shift. Everything was innocent.
What are we doing here? Cara Rintala did not kill her wife. And if this trial isn't a search for the truth, then why are we all here?
Mark Oleksek and Carla Daniele did not take the stand. Cara also chose not to testify. The defense had only a few witnesses, including a forensic pathologist who refuted earlier statements regarding rigor mortis.
Based on everything you reviewed, give an opinion as to whether or not you could rule out Annamarie Rintala dying after 3 o'clock.
I could not rule that out.
Okay. And is that based on the evidence of struggle, the BMI of 33, and the rigor mortis that was present?
Yes, and also that rigor mortis is not the most reliable way to tell how long someone's been dead anyway. So it's not something to be relied on solely as the time of death.
And is that a pretty common statement within the forensic pathology community?
Yes.
The trial lasted for about 2 weeks, and then the jury deliberated. For the 4th time, Cara was in a courtroom to hear the outcome. The now 57-year-old was again convicted, but this time of a lesser charge, voluntary manslaughter. Cara's sentencing hearing was held on October 19th, 2023. Cara and Annamarie's daughter, Brianna, was now 16 years old. She spoke to the court about the loss she was going to experience if Cara was locked up behind bars for the voluntary manslaughter conviction. Judge Francis Flannery acknowledged Brianna's plea, and he also noted the unusual trial. The Republican reported that Cara was only the 2nd person known in Massachusetts history to stand trial for murder 4 times.
Now, I do not blame the defendant for the or hold against her in any way the procedural path that this case has taken with all its twists and turns. She had a right to defend herself, to go to trial as many times as was necessary. It is not up to the Commonwealth to punish her. That is my job. And I would not, nor would I ever punish a defendant, any defendant, for exercising the right to go to trial. But I accept the jury's verdict in this case, as I must. And everything that I do flows from that acceptance. Everything is based on that legal fact that the defendant killed her wife. And so her daughter's suffering, the suffering of everyone involved, ultimately is on the defendant and on her alone. It is her responsibility what has happened here. I have decided to give the defendant a sentence of no less than 12, no more than 14 years.
Cara was credited with the 7 years in prison she has already served since she was first indicted for murder in 2011. And that does it for this episode. As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts about this case. You can let me know by joining the conversation on Instagram at Court Junkie, by tweeting us at CourtJunkiePod, or by emailing us at podcast@courtjunkie.com. This episode was researched and written by Gabrielle Russon, with additions by Emma Diehl. If you'd like to hear these episodes without the ads, hear additional Court Junkie bonus episodes, or get access to our weekly newsletter regarding fascinating court cases, check out our Patreon options at courtjunkie.com/support. And just to let you know, I will be taking a break over the holidays. The last episode of the year will be released on December 18th, and then I'll be returning in mid-January. Thanks again for listening. Until next time.